I'd like to explain a little bit the different titles that we find on the Hanochas. And I want to say that whatever I'm going to say is only the way it was till the middle of the Lametz. What happened later, since I wasn't involved personally, I cannot say what the Seder was. But what I'm going to explain is how it was till then, till the middle of the Lametz. And that is concerning that sometimes you see on the Sikhe, it says Hanocha bilti Mugah. Sometimes we see on the Sikhe that says Hanocha satmimim bilti Mugah. Sometimes it says Hanocha protis bilti Mugah. Sometimes it says Hanocha with a dot, and then it says the word bilti Mugah. Sometimes it says just the word Hanocha. So I want to explain all the different things the way it were. In the beginning, in the Yuds, and also in the beginning of the Chovs, Rabbi Leibel was the one that used to write all the Hanochas. And he used to write Hanocha bilti Mugah. From the middle of the Chovs, like Chovov on, when the Bochrim started writing the Hanochas, we decided to make a little change. And we decided to write Hanochas hatmimim bilti Mugah, because we felt that since we're only Bochrim and we're not as good as Rabbi Leibel, so the Hanochas are not as good as Rabbi Leibel. So to make sure that people know that this is not as good as it used to be, so we changed it and wrote Hanochas hatmimim bilti Mugah. But this was only when the Sikha came out officially. In other words, someone wrote the first draft of the Hanocha, and on that it would say Hanocha protis, because it was a private Hanocha. Then someone would look it over, or maybe two people would look it over and add and change. Then it came out officially, not officially from Merkez, but officially as a stenciled Hanocha. So there it would say Hanochas hatmimim bilti Mugah. But if it never came out in a formal way, and it was left only the way it was written in the first draft, so that remained with the words Hanocha protis bilti Mugah, to show that this is only Hanocha protis. I know if somebody privately for himself wrote a Hanocha, would also write the words just Hanocha protis, to show that this is just a private thing and you can't really rely on it so much as if it would come out formally. When they gave in a Sikha to the Rebbe to be Magia, L'chatchila they didn't write the words Hanocha bilti Mugah because it was given into the Rebbe to be Magia. And when the Rebbe was Magia, that's how it was. So they didn't say anything, not the word Hanocha bilti Mugah, not the word Hanocha, etc., etc. Sometimes, when the Rebbe would be Magia Sikha that was given in to be Mugah, but the Rebbe wasn't Magia it fully, whether not the full thing or not completely in a shleimistic way, the Rebbe himself would write, even though it didn't say these words originally when it was given in, the Rebbe would write the words Hanocha bilti Mugah. But I remember the Rebbe would write Hanocha with a period, bilti Mugah, because be'emes al pi digduk, that's how it's supposed to say. The word Hanocha is lashon nekeva, so it really should say Hanocha bilti Mugas. But if you write Hanocha, period, first thing we're saying it's Hanocha. And then we're adding another point. This is bilti Mugah. That's not edited by the Rebbe. So the Rebbe would write Hanocha with a dot, bilti Mugah. So those sikhs that have Hanocha, period, bilti Mugah, because the Rebbe was Magia it, but the Rebbe obviously felt he wasn't Magia it fully, so it's still called bilti Mugah, but that's how the Rebbe wrote. Sometimes, when the Rebbe would be Magia sikhe, that was not l'chatchila intended for the Rebbe to be Magia, gave the Rebbe a copy of the Hanocha the way it was written, so it said the word Hanocha bilti Mugah, but for some reason the Rebbe was Magia, and he left the words Hanocha bilti Mugah, which means the Rebbe also felt that he was Magia completely, so he left those words. But we decided, in order for us to be a siman, that the Rebbe was Magia the Sikha more or less, we ourselves, when we printed it, we wrote Hanocha, period, bilti Mugah, to show to us, to know a siman, that this is something that the Rebbe really, really was Magia, partially at least was Magia, so that's how we did it. Sometimes the Rebbe would write on the Sikha just the word Hanocha. In other words, it didn't say anything before because it was given in the Rebbe to be Magia. And the Rebbe himself wrote the word Hanocha. He didn't write the word bilti Mugah, but he wrote just Hanocha, also to show probably that it's not fully as if he would write it himself. It's just a Hanocha, but it's still a Mugah dikazach, and it's completely Mugah, and therefore the Rebbe wrote the word Hanocha. Now, there also happens sometimes that the Rebbe would write the words Rishimas Echad Hashemim. For instance, the Sikha about the Hemshech Samach Vov, which is printed in the back of the Samach Vov, And it's also printed in Chelik Zayin. Look at the Siches. When the Rebbe was Magiya it, he added the words on top, Rishimas Echad Hashemim. Now, probably what it was is because of the same, like he would write Hanocha, that this is Hanocha that someone wrote. It's Mugah, but it's still only a Hanocha. So in this case, he wrote Rishimas Echad Hashemim. It's interesting that when Chelik Zayin came out and the Sicha was printed there for Beis Nissen, the words Rishimas Echad Hashemim is not written there, and I don't remember what the reason was, but Leibel, the Rebbe, wrote it that way as you see it in the Samach Vov. This is basically Bekitzer, the difference in the different expressions we have concerning these Sichas.